everyone, this is Paula. Welcome back to my channel. I am an ISTJ, and this is my friend Cara here, who is an INFJ. And due to her introverted preference, we decided to do this a little bit different than my typical Myers-Briggs interactions. So we're going to have Q&A with INFJ and ISTJ.
Woohoo!
Dang, that was an unintentional rhyme. So what we're going to do is we're just going to each take turns asking each other questions about our type, and we'll go from there. So first off, I'll start. So, Cara, being an INFJ, you're known for being among the rarest of all the Myers-Briggs types. Mm-hmm. And most people consider INFJs to be like the most mysterious, most enigmatic, most frustratingly hard to read personalities out there. So what would you say is something that's really simple about an INFJ that most people think is complicated?
We are very complex creatures, honestly. Sometimes I think that I'm simple and I realize that I am very complicated in my head. But I think the simplest thing is that we love to make other people happy. We love to be there for other people and support other people. So across the board, INFJs are pretty people-pleasing, and that's pretty common.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I kind of knew that. When you put it into perspective like that, it sort of made me think about you in a different way. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. All right, so you have a question ready?
Yeah, so earlier we were talking about how the difference between an N and an S. So I'm curious, when you take in the world as an S, how does that feel? What does that look like for you?
It looks like exactly what I see. So like I say, that's a pillow. Those are jeans, and they're blue. You've got pink fingernails. You've got a green bracelet. Mm-hmm. Was there a different meaning behind the word look there?
No, I just think that when N's perceive the world, they don't see details. They see patterns and more of the underlying meaning behind things. So it's just so different, the N and the S.
Well, I guess like if I do see hidden meanings, it'll usually be pretty obvious. Like I might say, well, you do realize exactly what it means that we both have brown hair, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's sort of an inside joke between us to the audience, but that's a hidden meaning where I can like clearly point out the answer, and Cara can be like, I can see that, even if she doesn't have to point it out herself. Mm-hmm. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Alrighty. So my next question is, even though you're an INFJ, your type is known for being the least organized and structured of all the judging types. So with that being said, how would you still consider yourself a J despite that stereotype of being so scatterbrained for a judging type?
Yeah, it's funny because I am a J, but I'm chronically late to everything, so most J's are not
including
that way.
This hangout.
Including, as happened earlier today, I'm always late for everything. So I think that's a different personality tendency of optimism, I think. But I always think I have more time than I do. That's why I'm chronically late. I'm like, I can maximize this amount of time because I'm planning it. I'm just not planning the extra drive time in all the time. So I think that, I forgot the question. It was,
how are you still a J despite being so scatterbrained?
That's funny. I think that I'm very goal-oriented. So even though the day-to-day might not be as fit and organized and planned, I am very goal-oriented across time. I have specific things I want to reach in my career, and specific, by a certain age, I want to be a certain place. So I'm always making goals and meeting goals, and I'm very task-oriented in that way. I always have a list of things to do on my phone. I don't really have downtime. I always structure my breaks. I always have a list of things that I want to accomplish every day. So I think that's where my J is. I'm just a very, very late J.
And I guess that explains why you're always able to respond to, like, if I send multiple texts, you're always able to separate them one from another. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So I guess similar question for you as a P then.
Wait, not an ISTJ.
But you do have a lot of P tendencies, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to food, I totally forgot about dinner plans for this hangout, for example. I tend to be a lot more easygoing in that respect. Also, like, you know, being around the fact that you're such a non-J by my standards has helped me to sort of be okay with being a bit more spontaneous, being a bit more go with the flow. Like today we went to the apple orchard and we were only intending to just have a casual hangout. So I was.
Someone say apple orchard.
Oh, hey audience, this is my friend Danielle. And she is an ENFP, and so she wanted to make a cameo in this video. So, I guess this has turned into an ISTJ-INFJ ENFP interaction. So, Cara, how about we ask Danielle a couple of questions about her type?
You can go first.
Alright, so first off, being an extrovert, obviously that brings along its own set of dynamics. So would you ever say that the two of us are just like too slow or tiresome for you? Like when the two of us are like starting to wind down a bit?
I don't think so. Like I think I'm the most introverted of the extroverts. That's at least what you were telling me
That's
before.
common knowledge, yeah.
So for me, like I like that introversion time. Sometimes I don't like to talk all the time. I like to listen, and I don't think like the downtime is ever like an issue. So I don't think it's been an issue though. But
Sorry.
I like to I think I get energy from hanging out with people. So I think that's probably the difference. So.
So, being a P, having friends that are J's, is that a struggle sometimes?
A little bit, because like with Paul, for instance, like he wants like to know when I'm coming and what time, like right on the dot when I'm going to be visiting. So that's been an issue because sometimes I'm just like, hey, I'm going to come in the afternoon for a visit instead. Like Paul wants to know like when in the afternoon.
And I'll say, do you have a
like,
time estimate?
Yeah, and like schedules. Like I don't really like schedules, so.
Yeah, with your crazy work and my crazy work, we don't really have a choice.
Yeah,
That's
true.
It's good though. Like I think it's nice to have that though too, because I feel like we get the most like out of our hangouts because you're scheduled with things. So I think it's good to have that balance.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'd like to point out to you guys that I haven't said in my other Myers-Briggs videos is that on a website called Socionics, they actually... That's our friend Matt who's filming.
Just caught me off guard.
He's an ENFP too, by the way. So, one thing that...
Okay.
One thing that I didn't say on my channel is that for the introverted type, Socionics labels the last letter the opposite. So technically speaking, you are an INFP, I'm an ISTP, and you're an ENFP. So by Carl Jung's standards, all of us are perceiving types. So I think it would be best if I briefly describe to you guys what Carl Jung intended to be perceiving. Perceiving is the way in which a person with a perceiving tendency likes to take in before they give out. So like a judging type likes to tell the rules and enforce and then think about it. We like to take in information and then express it in an external judging manner. So like for you, you might take in the dynamics of the room and then like your feeling side is going to be like, oh, well, give me a hug because that was so sweet. You're like extrovertedly judging.
Mm-hmm.
But for you, because you're an EP, that would mean that your perceiving function is an extroverted one. So how would you say you extrovertedly take in the world? Oh my gosh, that sounds like a contradiction.
How I extrovertedly take in the world.
Because your dominant function is extroverted intuition, which from my knowledge is like that ability to be able to see random connections and patterns and ideas. Very idealistic, artful.
I would say I'm idealistic for sure. But I mean, I don't know. You're saying like that I just like say kind of what I'm thinking instead of kind of thinking about what I'm thinking before saying it.
Kind of. What do you think? Does she have that tendency?
I think so.
Yeah, probably. Probably. Yeah.
Whereas I, on the other hand, will think about it for about a week before I say it, and I will craft it in a certain way.
And I, on the other hand, will have already been thinking about it for years because I have such a good memory that I can like remember something from 7 years ago and then eventually say like, oh, by the way, on this day, this time, this place. Actually, today we are celebrating 4 years to the day of being friends because I remember the exact date that we met. And in fact, 2 hours it'll be to the exact minute.
Aww.
That's so cute. Yeah, I think sometimes it gets me into trouble though, thinking or like talking before I think. I think that's probably a problem.
Yeah, but then you're in...
I try to think, or
Oh, sorry.
I try to think more before I speak. No, I've been trying to, so I don't know. It's a struggle, but I'm trying.
So then another thing that is kind of cool that most of you probably didn't notice is that even though Cara and I share more letters in common than Danielle, of which I share no letters in common, actually you and I share the same functions, but we don't share any functions with you, Cara.
Share your functions.
So my functions are introverted sensing, extroverted thinking, introverted feeling, extroverted intuition. But your functions, on the other hand, are introverted intuition, extroverted feeling, introverted thinking, and extroverted sensing. Total opposite. And like the sensing, thinking, feeling, intuition is also in reverse order.
Okay. Well, that's crazy.
So I guess it's sometimes like I have noticed subtleties between the way that you two feel. And so I guess I'd like you guys to describe it to the camera instead of just coming from my perspective. Like, how would you describe being a secondary extroverted feeler as opposed to being a secondary introverted feeler? Why don't you go first, Danielle, because you're used to being put on the spot.
I don't really know what you're saying with that. So like you're like
So okay,
introverted.
when you feel
Yeah.
like if it's introverted feeling, that means you're likely more to like take back the time to introspect and like introverted feelers tend to take things more personally as well. So like you inwardly feel, but it doesn't necessarily show on your face or anything like that. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. I try not to be like, I don't know, I try not to like be upset or something like that. If I'm upset about something, I'll probably like keep it to myself and then talk about it afterwards. So I guess that's it. Like, or like, you know how you said like, if I'm upset, I'm not going to talk to you about it?
Yeah.
That's probably pretty true. Like, if I'm upset about something,
Yeah, you always want to hear how I'm doing, but then when I ask you how you're doing, I sum it up in like 4 words.
I try not to like talk about like myself and like negative things, but I mean sometimes I do because everyone's human, and sometimes if you have something negative going on, like you do need to talk about it and vent. But I think I just learned like to keep those things kind of like to myself. So I think that's probably it. So I try to be more positive about stuff that's going on. So I think that's probably pretty accurate. But
Yeah, I'd say so.
But if I'm gonna see like a llama over there, I'm gonna be like, whoa, there's a llama. Like, I'm not gonna like think about it.
Well,
before I say
we
it.
did see an
I don't
ostrich
know.
today that like freaked Cara out.
Yeah, it was pretty scary.
Yeah.
All right, so with you being an extroverted feeler, in case you don't know like what it technically means, is extroverted feelers, they feel more when other people are feeling. So I've noticed, and you can give your own perspective in a minute, but I've noticed that like your whole body changes depending on what I'm feeling. It's like when I start telling a sad story, your mouth starts drooping and your eyebrows start to contract a little bit. When I'm like happy about something, your eyes will like widen and your smile will broaden. It's almost like you're vacuuming what I'm feeling onto yourself, and so as a result, you don't get your feelings hurt as much. So how would you describe like what's different than what Danielle just said?
Yeah, I guess it's, as an extroverted feeler, I definitely feed off of other people's energy. When somebody else is sad, I will feel sad. When somebody else is happy, I will feel happy, which makes connecting with people easier sometimes, and being a counselor easier because I can empathize really well. Even if I haven't been through it, I can feel what they're feeling in a small way, not entirely, but I can empathize. It's hard for me when somebody else is crying to not cry, even when somebody's sharing like happy things to not feel happy for them. So
Yeah, you don't cry when I cry.
Yeah, but it's different. Like sometimes when people are telling me a really hard thing, I will tear up, and I try to stay strong for them, but I will feel that emotion, that release. So I think I like that about myself because I feel like it connects me to people in a really real way emotionally, and I like that. But it is, if I'm having a bad day, I won't always talk about it. So I think it's easier for me to just keep that inside, how I'm feeling, and feed off of other people's energy. And it's important for me to keep really positive people in my life, because if I have a lot of negativity, I will feed off of that too. So it's interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
So are you two then, you were saying that you don't share any functions between Danielle and Cara.
No, Danielle and I don't share any functions in common with Cara.
Yeah. So Danielle, you are an empath, which means that you do feed on like the emotions of others, and like you kind of feel that way. Is that something that's common in an ENFP, or is that uncommon?
Well, from my understanding, it's been said that the best way to make an ENFP happy is for everyone around them to be joyful. Hence where the ENFP comes into place, because your focus is like, let's make the whole world happy. And like whenever I come up with good news, I always hear like, oh, that's so wonderful. So she's right there in the room while I'm imitating her. I can't do that very often.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, introverted feeling doesn't mean that your feelings are completely kept on the inside. It just means that your deepest feelings are something you'd prefer to be more introspective on than like show it on your face. You're not necessarily going to be a drama queen that's face scrunches up and you're pounding the table in frustration. You're likely to sort of be more contained.
Yeah, I would say so too. I just think like when I do feed off of people's energy around me, and then sometimes I get like where I just need that alone time because it's like there's so many things, like you can just feel so many people's feelings. So sometimes I just need that space, or I try to like almost if someone's really upset, I try to like block off feeling anything, which sounds weird, but it's like it kind of helps me because I feel like I'm really empathetic, and if I like feed into other people's feelings, then it just kind of sucks for me. So I try to like block it off. But that's just me.
So, I guess one final question to sort of wrap things up, because remember the last time we interviewed, we ended up making it a two-parter. So, with me being ST and you both being NFs, and Matt's also an ENFP as well, are there ever any challenges? Now this time I'm going to ask both of you to answer this, because normally I only ask one or the other, but like, what are some like NF mutuality challenges dealing with a sensing thinking type?
I just think that,
Or what are also some things that are good about it too? Not just, don't make this a whole negative
Yeah.
Nancy.
no, I
Or
think,
Debbie Downer.
Yeah, or everything.
I think the main difference is the structure and lack of structure of everything is very logic based for an ST, very logical, practical, what makes most sense. Sometimes the NFs are more up in space and we think about how we feel and what big picture wise makes sense, but we don't think about the details. And it's, I don't know, a different way of processing information. But on the contrary, it's always good to have somebody to give you a different perspective on things and have more of a time set and more of a structure for hangouts and more of a challenge in the way that you think. So I see the benefits of it too.
Definitely, yeah. I would think the one thing that's different between us, like if I'm saying like I'm feeling some way, sometimes like you won't affirm those feelings. So like if I'm like upset about something, you'd be like, well, what about this situation? Like you kind of look at it more of an outsider's perspective a little bit, which I think can be really helpful actually at times. Sometimes I get wrapped up in how I'm feeling and like what I think about a situation, and maybe sometimes it's not actually what's happening. Maybe that's just how like I'm interpreting what's around me. So I think it's kind of like a cool thing because it's like you're not so wrapped up in the feeling of it. It's more like that what's actually happening. So I think that's kind of can be something really helpful too. So I appreciate that.
That's good. All right, Matt, so would you like to ask a question or an observation to all three of us before we wrap this up?
How would you describe in one word each of your, not your personal personalities, but like the Myers-Briggs personality?
Okay.
So saying if you're an ENFP, how would you describe in one word what an ENFP is?
So I guess you're going first.
I was listening.
I don't know. I guess just happy people who want to make other people happy.
Okay, then I guess one description.
I don't know. Like I guess it just I don't know. Go first.
Enthusiastic.
No, that's good.
Enthusiastic.
Not bad.
I would say. I don't know.
All right, Cara, do you think you've got a nice summarized J?
Yeah, I have a one word, reflective. I think the INFJ is very reflective.
And I would say pensive.
Happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Matt, for
I'm
filming.
sorry I was laughing for like a good 5 minutes out of this interview.
okay.
That just threw me off a little bit when you popped out.
I
Did
think that-
someone say?